Hello, everyone, and welcome to our conversation. Hashtag Give Back, Give Black. So today we are talking Black Family Matters. And the theme of our conversation for today is moving from poverty to prosperity. I'm Tracy Johnson, and I am the program officer at the Poise Foundation. And it is my great honor to host this event, which is just one in a series of year-long anniversary activities. I'm also honored to be joined with this conversation by Charlise Smith of Sea Wisdom Management, LLC, and Wave Housing Counseling Agency, and also Tammy Thompson of T3 Consulting, Inc. and Catapult Greater Pittsburgh. Thank you both for agreeing to talk with us today. And I wanted to share a little bit around why we're having this conversation around money and Black families. So since 2012, Poise has been really focused and committed on strengthening Black families here in our region. We do this automatically through our grant making, but the foundation has also been committed to elevating issues that impact Black families through our community conversations. Our vision of a Pittsburgh region is where all members of the Black community are empowered and self-sufficient. And that begins with our most valuable asset, which is our families. The ability to build wealth and keep it is crucial to self-sufficiency. In the past, Poise has funded Black-led organizations providing financial literacy activities and entrepreneurial activities in the community. Yet, through our interaction with our next guests and other members of the community, we've come to realize that these activities are just one part of the solution, and that having the right mindset for wealth is also key. So we wanted to come together and explore the concepts of poverty trauma and its impact on wealth building and self-sufficiency through this dynamic conversation with our guests who have been locally and nationally addressing these topics. So we're excited to hear from Tammy and from Charlise and to talk about how we can create that whole mindset around money. So I will throw it to you, and I'll start with you, Charlise. How do we begin to think about shifting our mindset when it comes to wealth building?
Yes. So I truly believe that this has to be an internal shift. A lot of times we grasp on external things, and in reality, those external things only last for a moment. So in order for us to learn how to shift our mindset, we have to be surrounded around individuals who are working on themselves internally and just have a different perspective on how money operates. If we don't understand how money operates, we will continue to run this rat race, trying to keep up with everyone, believing that our external clothes and vehicles and external things literally help us, when in reality, our bank account is in a negative, or we're not being honest about robbing Peter to pay Paul, or paying a bill prior to us even getting our paycheck just to make it through. So in order for us to literally have a mind shift and a reset mind, you literally have to work on your insides.
Yes, ma'am. And so, Miss Tammy, I want to throw the same question to you. How can we start to begin to kind of shift our mindset toward building wealth?
So first, I want to say thank you to the Poise Foundation for inviting me to have this awesome conversation. This is literally one of my favorite topics to cover, and I'm honored to share the stage with my sister Charlise, who is doing incredible work to address exactly what we're talking about today. I agree with everything Charlise said. Poverty is a very important topic for me to cover personally. I was born into very, very deep generational poverty, struggled the entire bulk of my life to escape and to create a better life for myself and my family. And as a result, decided that it was important for me to learn about poverty and to analyze and assess my current condition and how I got here, and to address the experiences that I had that I equate to poverty trauma. I was extremely traumatized by my experiences in poverty. And I think one of the reasons why we struggle as a society to address issues of poverty is we don't, as a society, do the work to help address the emotional and psychological damage that long term exposure to poverty creates. It is really important for us to understand that poverty is not just about money, right? Money is a byproduct of poverty. But even when people escape and start earning money, the remnants of that trauma remain. And until it's addressed, people will continue to make the same decisions and the same mistakes and are literally living a trauma induced lifestyle. So we have to address that to help folks move to the next level.
Wow, that is so amazing. Really thinking about the psychological trauma of poverty. And so that is just a snippet of what we are going to be getting into tonight, family. These are Black Family Matters, and we definitely want to have a conversation as a family. We want the conversation, even though it's serious in nature, to be upbeat, because we know that finances are a major source of stress and anxiety. But if we have the right mindset and we approach it in a positive way, it doesn't have to be overwhelming and stressful. So for our next set, we have recruited DJ Corey Lankford of CWL Creatives to set that positive vibe and to host the game of Black Excellence Trivia. So here you go. I'm tossing it to you, Corey.
All right. Hey, everybody, listen, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Hope everybody can hear me nice and clear. Today, we're going to do some Black excellence trivia. So what you're going to do is go ahead and put the answer down in the comments, and we'll be able to see that. Okay, so I want to say this is Poise isn't alone. Organizations and individuals across the country are giving back and giving Black. So it's time to put your knowledge to the test in this game of Black Excellence Trivia. Now, after I ask you the question, drop your answer in the comments, and you'll be entered to win a copy of Tammy Thompson's Spending Log. This is really, really exciting to begin that mental journey out of poverty into prosperity. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read question number 1. All right, question number 1 is this: what 2 local fraternities house scholarship funds at Poise Foundation? I'm going to read that again. It says, what 2 local fraternities house scholarship funds at Poise Foundation? All right, let me see if anybody knows the answer there. If anybody knows the answer there, go ahead and put it in the comments. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to do that. Not too much time, though, but just a little bit of time to answer that question. All right. Our question again is, what 2 local fraternities house scholarship funds at Poise Foundation? All right. Yes, thank you. Okay, let's see. All right. All right. So we don't have an answer just yet. So let me know. Okay, wait a minute. What we have Phi Beta Sigma and Omega Psi Phi. Wonderful. The answer is, I'm gonna give it to her. The answer is Alpha and Omega Psi Phi. Okay. So I think, yes, I think we can go ahead and give that answer. And that was, let me see here. We're moving a little fast on here. That was Janae Edwards. I believe I'm saying it right. Janae Edwards was the first one. Okay, we had some other close ones. Alpha Kappa. I'm not local, guessing alphas and Qs. Okay, all right, so moving forward to the next question. All right, here we go. Question number 2. Who is nicknamed the godfather of hip hop philanthropy? Okay, let me say that again. Who is nicknamed the godfather of hip hop philanthropy? See who can get that one. Let's see. I'm gonna check out and see where you are. Who is nicknamed the godfather of hip hop philanthropy? And that question is also in the comments as well. All right, they said Paradise Gray. Not quite. Not quite. Let's see what we got here. Zari X, Jasir X, not quite, not quite. Getting close. Somebody else said again, Paradise Gray. All right. Give you a few more seconds to answer that and see how close you get to that. All right. Let's see what we got. Hey, thank you, Danielle. Thank you for logging on and checking out what we're doing here. All right, so I'm gonna give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ah, somebody said, man, Aquiva. Yeah, he's a phenomenal videographer in the city and all around Pittsburgh. So the answer is, no one guessed that one, so I'm gonna go ahead and give that one away. All right, that answer is Def Jam co-founder Russell Simmons. He has raised millions of dollars for Rush Philanthropic, gotta say that right, Arts Foundation and its brainchild, the Hip Hop Summit Action Network, in an effort to get more young people involved in and exposed to the arts and social causes. So no one got that one, but let's see if you get answer number 3. Question number 3. What television has donated more than 300 million through various organizations and foundations? That question again. What television host donated more than 300 million through various organizations and foundations? All right, let's see what you come up with. Okay, all right. Let's see. All right, exciting. We have an answer here. Celeste Benzo answered Oprah, and that answer is correct. Oprah Winfrey, she has given through the Oprah Winfrey Foundation, Oprah's Angel Network, and the Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy Foundation. Thank you so much. Note that Poise Foundation, that she has answered that question correctly. Let's go on to the 4th question. What writer, producer, actor, and director created a 330-acre empire in the heart of Atlanta? This is easy. This is history. The first person that gets that is going to get it. What director, writer? Let's see. Let's go back. I know somebody's about to get that. Question again. What writer, producer, actor, and director created a 330-acre empire in the heart of Atlanta? Let's see. Tyler Perry. Let's see. The first to answer that was Janae Edwards with Tyler Perry. She came back with the comeback. Janae, she has the answer correct. All right, we just have just one more question, I believe. Okay, let's see here. You are doing so fantastic. So fantastic. Okay, we have one more question. What multi-platinum selling Grammy award-winning artist, entrepreneur, and actor started a foundation in 2001 to serve youth and families in his community? Here's a hint. The foundation is based in Atlanta, Georgia, and provides programming in Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, New York, and Washington, D.C. Okay, you ready? Let me give that to you again. What multi-platinum selling Grammy award-winning artist, entrepreneur, and actor started a foundation in 2001 to serve youth and families in his community? Here's a hint. The foundation is based in Atlanta, Georgia, and provides programming in Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, New York, and Washington, D.C. Let's see if we have an answer. Let's see. Who do we have? Okay. Somebody said, I'm so not good with these. Okay. Jay-Z, that was close. Very good. I didn't see Jay-Z doing too much acting yet, though. But he is. Nipsey, Kanye West said, oh, wait, he's not an actor. Can I give a hint? Let me see if I can give a hint. Let me see if I get the opportunity to give a hint. Okay. All right. Let me see here. Okay. Hint for you all is this. He has a movie coming out today. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. Here we go. Amy Lorimore said Ludacris. That is the correct answer. Ludacris is the correct answer. Chris Ludacris Bridges, the Ludacris Foundation was established in 2001 and strives to inspire urban youth to live their dreams and envision new possibilities for their lives through various programs and partnerships. Now, let's go ahead and toss it back to Tracy and get gems on how we too can build wealth for our families. Thank you everybody for playing. Enjoy the rest of the program.
Thank you so much, Corey, for that Black Excellence trivia. For those of you who might not have won anything for this round, I encourage you to stay tuned because Corey will be back. We will be doing another round of trivia so that we can give away some more books, some prizes. So definitely stay tuned. But when it comes to Black Excellence, I just want to share a little bit of information around that. When it comes to giving, the Black community gives in record numbers. So according to the Soul of Philanthropy, African Americans give more than any other racial group, donating nearly 9% of our disposable incomes. Black people donate 25% more of their disposable incomes than white Americans. So on average, Black households give a little over $1,600 a year. Let me say that again. On average, Black households give a little over $1,600 a year to their favorite charities and causes, many embracing the practice of tithing. For all of us church folk, we know about that 10%. And over the past 40 years, the Poise Foundation has awarded more than $15 million in grants and scholarships to the Pittsburgh Black community. And so when we think about giving back and giving Black, it is just something about us as a people that we give. And so now we want to jump back into the conversation with Miss Tammy and Miss Charlise so that we can talk a little bit more. So recently we celebrated Juneteenth, and for the first time, Juneteenth is a federal holiday. So more than 150 years after emancipation, not much has changed when it comes to the advancement or economic advancement of Black people in this country. Yes, we see wealth when we hear it, and see it with athletes and entertainers, but we have to think about the average Black American. And so according to the Harvard Press, Black Americans owned 1/2 of 1%. That's scary. 1/2 of 1% of the national wealth. And that was back in 1863. So here we are today. And according to American Progress, it was Blacks own 1.5% of the national wealth. So we only got like a 1% increase from 1863 to here we are right now, 2019, these statistics. And what we also know is that the median wealth of Black households in the United States is $24,100, right? So I'm a numbers geek, so that's why I'm like sharing these numbers, because we need to know what the landscape of our families and our, communities look like. But when we compare that median wealth of Black households to white households, their median wealth is $189,100, right? Mm-hmm. So they are almost $190,000. That is their median household income. So I want to start with you, Tammy, with this set. What do we need to do in order to start to close this vast racial wealth gap? We have access to education. Many of us have, advanced degrees, and, we're working on advanced degrees. Some of us have jobs that our ancestors never dreamed we would have. We like to quote, we've had a Black president. Now we have a Black Asian woman who is the vice president. But we still haven't done anything to shrink that wealth gap when it comes to race. Yeah. So if you can share, Tammy, what are some of the things that you think that we should be doing in order to shift that?
Woo, how much time do I have to answer? Because we got a lot of work to do, but here's where we can start. I think what we first have to do is get clear on our definition of wealth. Right. So I have this conversation with people all the time, and we use the term wealth building in our programming descriptions and in our mission. But we have to get clear about the definition of wealth and how we as people, how do we perceive that word? I've had debates with people about what real wealth building is. And from my perspective, wealth is going to, what I think is wealth is going to be different than somebody who's had everything. They've never had a housing insecurity. They've never had a food insecurity. They've never really struggled to pay a bill. Maybe their idea of wealth is going to be different than somebody who has had to scrape and scrap for every single thing, for their most basic needs, right? So they might see wealth as a stimulus check. Right? I got an extra $1,000 that dropped out of the sky. That might feel like wealth to me. Right. Mm-hmm. But for somebody who has a home, they own a car, they have all these things. Wealth to them might be a part ownership in a major retail development. Right. So we have to think about scale. We have to think about where people are mentally, where people's ideas and understandings of wealth are. Right. So that's one thing, because my idea of wealth might be different than your idea of wealth. Wealth to me is not having to worry about paying a bill. I feel wealthy when I don't have to worry about how I'm going to pay a bill or which bill is going to get paid. And which
Amen.
Right. So when we're talking about this, I think we as Black people, we have to be clear and step outside of this classist, because we can be classist, right? So we talk about racist, but we also have to talk about classism. And as Black folks, we have to be clear when we're talking about solutions and when we're talking about the issue and stating the issue. Are we talking about all Black folks, or are we just talking about this group of Black folks, right? So we got to be clear about that. But the reason that net worth number and that gap is so huge is very simple to me. It's about ownership, right? Home ownership is the number one wealth creator in this society. And for folks who have been able to do it for generations, who have been passing that wealth down generation to generation, maybe bought a home, a family home 60 years ago that is now 10 times what it was worth, when they bought it, and continuing to pass down the equity and the wealth in that property. That's why we have this huge gap, because we haven't had that benefit. The majority of us have not had the benefit of legacy wealth for a whole lot of reasons, and a lot of them are policy issues, right? So when we're talking about that net worth is what do you own minus how much do you owe? And so we have folks who have never been homeowners, but have a tremendous amount of student loan debt. Right. So a lot of us are in the negative in the net worth department. So if we want to close that gap, we're going to have to talk really, really seriously and intentionally about ownership, which is why I love Charlise. And Charlise and I have very, very similar programs around home ownership. We work together because we understand how vast this problem is. This lack of home ownership in the Black community is the number one reason we have this gap in wealth amongst race.
So I'm glad that two things that I'm glad that you brought up is, one is that we have to think about how we define wealth and how that looks very different for each of us. And how we define it is one of the things that kind of, determines our path as to how we deal with it, how we acquire it, and how we plan for it. So I definitely think that's amazing. The other thing is, Charlise, I'm getting ready to bat this over to you, is around ownership and home ownership, which is, when I think back, and I put on my political science degree hat for a minute, and we think about redlining in communities, and we think about, that, our veterans that were coming back, our Black veterans couldn't use their GI Bills to buy homes, but white veterans could use their GI Bills to buy homes, and banks literally freezing out African Americans from purchasing homes. And then we wonder why we have our slums and our ghettos, quote unquote, today, it's because we have been pushed out. And, and why are, and, we ask the question, well, why are all the Black people living in the city? Why are they all urban? Because we've been forced to live there, and we've been forced to, rent and not own. And when I think about my own community as someone who, is born and raised in the Hill, and I think about the history of that community where homes were destroyed and thousands of people displaced for new development. And we're still fighting that battle today. So shout out to organizations like the Hill CDC, because we're still fighting those same battles today in 2021. And so I want to throw the ball to you, Charlise, in regards to home ownership, because Wave, that's what you do. That's how I first met you, around your housing program and preparing people for ownership. And so when we talk about, trying to shrink that gap along with, redefining what wealth is, let's talk about this concept of ownership, Charlise, and particularly home ownership.
Yes, that's a good question. To me, and just to piggyback on some of what Tammy was saying about identifying what wealth is to you and when it relates to home ownership. I come from a family of most of my family were homeowners, right? However, when I moved with my grandmother at a young age after being a single mom, I moved with my grandmother, 16, 17 years old, single mom, and I would look at her bills. And one of the things I saw was she had a $2,000 water bill, right?
Wow.
So when I bought my house in 2005, I did not realize that I had to pay my water bill, right? I thought that if I moved in this house, as long as I paid my light and my gas, and because I saw my grandmother had a $2,000 water bill, I could get away with not paying my water bill. Well, the water company came and shut my water off. Now I'm looking at my 2 children in our household with no water. So the perception that we have when it comes to home ownership is that we have to make sure that we do not allow banking industries, realtors, or anyone else dictate what the value and how much we can really afford. The reason why Wave was important to me, because I would look in my communities and I would say, why are all of our homes in our communities look deplorable? I couldn't wrap my head around that. And what I've learned is that a lot of us, because we were excited about being able to purchase a home, we were purchasing homes beyond what we could really afford. Right. And so we get in these homes and we think that we have arrived. We think that, hey, I bought my home, and then life happens and you can't afford to pay your mortgage, or you may have been misled by a mortgage broker, or you're caught in a mortgage, 30-year mortgage that shifts every time the economy shifts. So when we talk about home ownership, yes, in our class, I let everyone know, yes, home ownership is one of the greatest assets. However, if you don't pay the mortgage, the bank is coming to get the home. And when you ask that beginning question about how we look at wealth, if we do not identify how we feel inside, we will purchase homes outside of our means. We won't even understand the equity or even how to leverage the equity within our homes in order for it to create generational wealth. We find ourselves not able to understand that we have to have a reserve in our accounts. So if something goes wrong, do we really have the resources to fix things when we purchase our homes? So when I looked around our communities, and when I got introduced to tax credit properties, and I started like really diving into the whole bigger picture when it comes to real estate, I realized that a lot of us, we purchase our homes well above the price of our true net worth. because the bank is going to look at your gross.
Mm-hmm.
The bank don't care about you getting your nails done and your hair done. They don't ask those questions. So if you don't shift your internal and say, wait a minute, I need to link up with some people who are willing not to go get their hair done, or willing not to go buy $400 worth of weave, or willing to chill and not be okay with wearing a few pair of shoes because they understand the common goal and the common American dream, but not having an American dream that have you stressed out at night trying to figure out how you're going to make your mortgage payment when something shifts in your life. Those are very critical attributes and internal things that you have to deal with when it comes to real estate. Real estate can be amazing if you know how to work the real estate and not work the real estate from the poverty mindset.
Got it. I love it. And so we talked about the wealth gap. Now I want to talk about another hot topic, right? So we have, recently there has been all this talk around making the case for reparations by the federal government, and restitution being offered to descendants of slaves and even to all Black Americans for the centuries of servitude and suffering. And so my question, and Charlise, and I'm gonna throw this to you to start. Should we be advocating for our 40 acres and a mule, right? Like, should we be advocating for reparations? What are your thoughts around that? And do you think that reparations is a clear and legitimate option for Black people in closing the racial wealth gap?
Absolutely. Listen, when you're home and you're a single mother and you're trying to figure out, you were talking about those two income ranges, right? Those income ranges literally come from slavery. Those income ranges really come from, our ancestors did not have the opportunities that we have today. But although we have those opportunities today, we are still struggling to catch up. We are still struggling to keep our head above waters. I believe that the minimum wage should be increased. I believe that middle class and low class individuals should have the opportunities to have access to what the wealthy have. It amazes me when we started learning about the stock market. And when you start learning about that, you realize that the wealthy has access to stocks way before they become public. And because of the mindset and because of the past slavery and we weren't taught about land and we weren't taught how to build wealth, absolutely, we should be fighting for what our ancestors did not have and what we are due today. Because if we really want to break this generational curse, we have to fight for many years of things that were taken away from us. And it doesn't just affect us financially, it affects our health. It affects so many areas of our life. So should we be fighting for this? Should we be implementing policy, tax reform? Absolutely.
So, Ms. Tammy, I'm gonna let you weigh in on this as well. Should we be fighting for our 40 acres and a mule plus interest, right? It's like know your worth and add tax.
Yeah. We should be asking for more than 40 mules. I want like 120 mules. I think we deserve reparations. We have to get it. And I think there's some intentionality around how it needs to happen. I think it has to start with addressing the inequities in homeownership. We know, there's evidence, there's proof. Everybody knows that the federal government was a culprit in keeping Black folks out of homeownership opportunities. We know that, right? So they owe us that. We know that we were not kept out of homeownership necessarily, but we were forced into a lower value neighborhood. So that is still impacting us, right? So there's places like Levittown, New York, where folks purchase homes, pay $70,000, $40,000 for a house, and today that house is worth $300,000, $400,000. That is an amount of equity. And I love somebody asked a great question in the chat about home market value equity, but that is taking money out of our pockets, literally. Because if I wasn't allowed to purchase in Levittown, which there was legislation that said, somebody actually passed a law that said Black folks can't buy houses here, right? So I couldn't buy here. I had to buy in the next town over, same amount, pay the same amount for the house, but today I can only sell that house for $70,000, $80,000. That is a huge difference in increased equity over generations. We deserve that. We absolutely, and that happened all over the country. It happened here in Pittsburgh. So from a federal standpoint, to a state standpoint, to a local government standpoint, everybody owes us. Everybody owes us. And that's just home ownership. We also, from my perspective, a form of reparations could be Black folks shouldn't have to pay for a college education. We shouldn't have to pay. So that automatically would wipe out the one thing that is keeping us, really the one major thing, and Charlise can probably agree with this in a way. Student loan debt is the number one obstacle to Black folks getting into homeownership. Of all the folks that we see, of all the folks that go through our program, probably 60 to 70% of the folks who come through either get denied for a mortgage because of their student loan debt, or a huge reduction in what they can borrow based on how much student loan debt they have. So student loan debt has to be addressed in the reparations conversation. And I also think we should be talking about criminal justice reform in terms of reparations, reducing sentences of our folks behind bars, because whether we want to acknowledge it or not, our mass incarceration rates are economically, socially, and economically impacting our communities. When our men are not in the communities, when folks are being sent away to prison at disproportionate sentences, it is impacting our economics in our communities. So I think all of these things have to be addressed from a conversation of reparations. We have to figure out how to get I'm like Miss Maxine Waters. How do we reclaim?
Yes.
Come on.
We need that, and we deserve it. And I think we absolutely should be having these reparations conversations at every turn.
And I love the fact that you brought up criminal justice reform, because our men have been incarcerated at astronomical rates. And when they are coming out of incarceration, they're coming out with nothing.
That's right.
And to nothing.
That's right.
So like their ability to, to build wealth because they can't find life wage sustaining employment because they have a record. Housing becomes an issue because they have a record. So, a lot of them are not eligible for public housing. So all of those things are happening. So it's like prohibiting their ability to build wealth. And so like they're looking to services like, from WAVE and from Catapult Pittsburgh, just not even necessarily to get a leg up, but just to basically survive.
And not to go back to jail.
Right.
That's right.
Right. Because if you can't make it the right way, I mean, you'll go back.
That's right.
Absolutely. On that subject, I had a son who was incarcerated. I literally put my dreams on the side and started a cleaning company. And I had skills, but I needed to do what I needed to do to provide something when he got out of jail.
That's right.
Because I knew if I didn't set the stage and provide something, I knew he would be going back to incarceration.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that sacrifice, it opened up other doors for me to learn about it, watch the transition. Like, I was shocked to see the trauma. Listen, it was deep to be to a mother to watch the trauma of the mindset of an African American man coming out of incarceration the first 10 days. We could have that subject, and I can give you blow for blow the strategic planning we had to do as a household, because his mind was still incarcerated. You talking about poverty?
Yeah.
I'm getting hot. Let me slow down, because I can on that one.
Yeah. No, this
talked about that.
This is good stuff. This is good stuff, and this is family talk that we need to have. So this is good stuff. And so I wanna pivot a little bit when we think about wealth and how that helps us to weather any financial storms we might face. And as we all know, in 2020, we faced one of the biggest financial storms, which was a pandemic that we ain't have no control over. So COVID-19, not only was it a health pandemic, but it also became a financial pandemic especially for many of our Black families and Black individuals. Think the state shut down, jobs were lost. Most of our folk were frontline workers. They were the ones that were working in those hotels that, couldn't have people anymore, and working at, like the different, stadiums and the convention center, cleaning and doing different things, and they weren't able to be employed. Then you think about those that were, maybe ran daycares in their home. And now, like, there's no kids. So, so you're not able to open up. So a lot of Black businesses suffered. A lot of Black families suffered. And so when we think about how financial, having, building wealth can help you weather a financial storm, how can we, as a community, start to generate wealth? What are some baby steps that we can begin to take in order to benefit, in order to like generate wealth? We talked about owning a home or having some kind of property and letting that equity grow. But what are some other things that we can start to do? Because maybe you're not ready to own a home right now. You have to start like with, and there is nothing wrong with baby steps, right?
The baby steps are important. We got to start with the baby steps.
So what are some of the things that we can start with in order to start building wealth? And Miss Tammy, I'm going to throw this question to you to start.
So I love this question, and it looks like somebody actually asked this. What is this?
Yes.
To the other forms of wealth besides home ownership? For me, it's very, very simple. It's two things. One, it is getting control of your spending. You have got, this is why, as you see the spending log in the background, this thing, I created this spending log for me initially, right? Because I had gotten to a place where I was working, but I was making a little bit of money. I was making more money than I had made before, but I still didn't seem to be able to stretch. I couldn't make it to payday. I couldn't figure out what is wrong. I have more money than I've ever had before. What is happening? And what it boiled down to is I still was spending. I was spending with this poverty mindset. I wasn't keeping track of where my money was going. I had no idea where my money was going. And then I just started writing it all down every day, every single purchase, writing it down and gaining some control and understanding of who I was as a person was all in there. Who I was, what I was still struggling with, and where I needed to make adjustments. But I would not have been able to do that without writing everything down. And so being aware of who you are as a spender is number one. You have to know that. You have to know where your money is going. Second is saving, right? We have to become better savers. You know, the experts say you should have at least 6 months of your monthly spending in a bank. 6 months is light. we should have at least a year to two of our monthly spending in the bank. And I know that number sounds crazy. It sounds crazy to people, like, oh my God, how will I ever do this? But the way you're going to do it is you're going to start tracking your spending and figure out where you can make some changes. Where can I reduce my spending and transfer that reduction in spending into savings? So saving and debt reduction, to me, are the two baby steps that people have to take to even start thinking about a wealth building conversation, right? Reduction of debt is really what? Putting money back in your pocket. So reducing your debt and increasing your savings, to me, are the two major baby steps that you have to make first.
Nice, nice. Miss Charlise, I'm going to throw the same question to you, but I also want to throw another question that's in the chat where it talks about how do we use equity in our homes for our benefit. So I'm going to throw that to you.
Yes. Let's start with how we can use homes to benefit for equity in our homes. One of the things that you have to do is have a plan. Okay, let me just be honest with you. I have been in my house since 2005. I bumped my head. I spun money any old kind of way I wanted to until I found myself in a place where I was going to face foreclosure and I had to clean up my act and clean up my surroundings. And what happened, it taught me how to get my credit back together, get myself back together, but it also taught me emotional stability. And what I mean by emotional stability is I stopped making rash spending decisions, as Tammy said. So let's fast forward. The reason why I started there in 2005 is because I live in the city. The market has changed. It is now 2021 when I allowed my insides to shift and not focus on spending unnecessarily. I was able to go back to the bank and refinance my home. I refinanced my home and I was able to knock off 10 years off of my mortgage. So now I'm sitting here, instead of still having a 20-year mortgage, I was able to cut that down to 10 years and now I have equity. But the reason why I started off with the emotional part is because guess what? My house has quadrupled in the community. And if my emotions were not together, I would be at the bank. I would be literally drawing down off the equity. And it's a lot of equity because I'm at the end of paying off my home. I would be drawing off the equity, trying to figure out what to do with the equity. But because I don't have a plan in place, I don't need to draw the equity. So if you have a plan, the power of when your home becomes an asset is that you can use that money to leverage other businesses. One of the things that we teach in our home buying classes is assets and liabilities. See, in school, they teach you how to balance a checkbook. They teach you how to money going in, money going out, make sure you got enough at the end of the month. But how many are teaching us, how many assets do you have? How many things, how many resources do you have coming in that is bringing money into your pocket versus how many things that you have going out that's taking money out of your pocket? Once you start learning how to use the hands that you have, okay, if you got pie skills, then you need to make some pies. You need to do the numbers, okay? Instead of going out buying everybody else's pies, you create your pies so that you can create multiple streams of income, right? If you know that you do hair, you need to set yourself up and do hair. And let me be very clear. I'm not a tax accountant, but there's something in power. You talk about leveraging your home. When I started my real estate firm, right here in this room where I'm at now, even though I have offices. And because I had a home-based business, it put me in position to be able to write off this room. So when I took my stuff to my accountant was able to write off a percentage of my light, was able to write off my cable, was able to write off my phone. That's when you turn your home into an asset. But when you get that income tax money, save it. Back to what Tammy is saying. You know, Yes, we can easily tell you to save. We can tell you these things, but we realize, okay, yes, I may be upside down. If you are upside down, then you need to sit down with someone and say, what can I pay that's not going to affect my credit? Do you need to pick up the phone and call Duquesne Light and say, put me on a payment plan, so that you cannot allow yourself to continue to just pay other people, and you're not learning how to pay yourself? We are not taught to pay ourselves first. We are taught to go to work, get a job, and pay everybody else. But you are the greatest asset, and your time is the greatest asset. So if you are utilizing your time, maybe you don't have the money, but if you're utilizing your time to educate yourself, then you have an opportunity to create wealth. Just because you don't have the resources, do the work. Tammy says that too, but do the work and the money will come. Right. Don't look at your natural situation right now. You have to move forward with your gifts and talents and trust and believe the windows will open up for you to understand and discern where you're supposed to operate financially to leverage who you are and your assets.
And Tracy, I know you're running out of time, but I have.
No, I'm not. We good.
Okay, I got to say this really, really fast, because this is the point that we're always trying to make when we talk about the importance of home ownership in the Black community. Equity in a home is how white folks surpassed us in building wealth. Mm-hmm. They use their equity to send their children to college. Right? So think about all the things that you can do with the equity in your home that we haven't been able to do, that other folks have done, that has really created this gap in wealth. If I own a home and I was smart enough and did my research and learned the importance of market value and which neighborhoods hold that value, where should I buy so that I'm increasing market value, which in turn turns into equity, is how you purchase a home. We should be purchasing homes as investors. I get that we are like, I just want to have somewhere nice to live. That's important, but you also have to be thinking about what happens when it's time for you to either sell that house or to pull equity for something really important, like sending your kid to college and preventing them from having to start their adult lives in debt like we did, right? You can pull equity from your home to use as capital to start a business. These are all the things that they do and have been doing for generations. So this is why I always talk about home ownership and entrepreneurship together, because they do work together. If you have equity, you can pull, because who's giving us money to walk into a bank and start a business? Not a lot of folks are doing that. So we have to think about home ownership as a way to extend our wealth in other ways, from reduction of debt to starting a business to, making sure that a family member has somewhere to go if they need it. Like, it's really, really, really important.
So I'm gonna ask this one more question before I toss it back to Corey. We have heard this concept of poverty trauma, right? And I will say, Miss Tammy, you were the one who introduced me to the concept through our work together, with the Strengthening Black Families Advisory Committee. And I was so blown away as to how the trauma of poverty and having a scarcity mindset influences how we deal with wealth, how our mindset in regards to accumulating it, our mindsets in regards to keeping it. And I've heard you talk about that so many times, like, not just locally, but on the national stage as well. And so I wanted to give you and Miss Charlise an opportunity to really expound upon what is poverty trauma. Like, why? I mean, like, we talk about like trauma from gun violence. We talk about trauma from broken homes. We talk about trauma from domestic violence. We talk about childhood trauma, but we do not, that's a new concept to so many people. We even talk about, trauma in regards to racism, but Poverty trauma is a new concept that we don't talk about, but I think it's one that we definitely need to entertain because it's powerful. And so I want to, throw it to you, Miss Tammy, to talk about what is poverty trauma? What does that even mean?
Yeah, so I'm happy you asked that, because one of the reasons I talk about it literally everywhere I go is because I realized when I entered the nonprofit sector that there were a lot of people who were doing work around poverty and doing work with folks who are living in poverty, but really didn't have a good grasp of understanding of how not getting your most basic needs met on a regular basis for long periods of time impacts you mentally and emotionally. And the trauma that creates, and thinking about, so as a young child, right, I knew nothing but poverty, and the type of poverty that you didn't know if you were going to eat that day, right? You didn't know if you were going to eat. You didn't know if you had to move every other month because or every year because your parents can't keep the housing. Like so many things, it impacts your health. Like all of these, the mental gymnastics that people have to do to survive in poverty is excruciating. And it does change how you see everything, not just money. It changes how you see everything. It changes how you make decisions about everything. It changes how you relationship. It impacts how you view yourself as a person. It changes how you see yourself in society. It changes how you see your community, right? And so if I'm always in survival mode, meaning I'm constantly every single day thinking about how am I going to survive today? Right? How am I going to get all the kids fed, get everybody to school, get everybody to, I got to get to work. I can't be late. I was late last time because so-and-so was sick. I was up all night. We heard gunshots all night. The neighbors were making noise. Like I'm living in a house where it rains. Every time it rains, there's water dripping in the, down on the floor. I can't be late because if I get late again, I'm going to get fired. But the school's calling me because they want me to come up and talk about Stevie's IEP, but I can't get there because I can't leave work. And I only had enough transportation money to get to work and get home until payday, not to get to work, get to the school so all of these things that people have to figure out day after day after day, food insecurity, all of these things, you can't understand this and think that people are not traumatized by living this way day after day, year after year, generation after generation. And so when we talk about poverty, we tend to only talk about it in terms of economics, which is important. But I think the mental, emotional, and psychological piece of poverty is even more important to understand, because even when these folks get money, even when I get money, when you hear about people who hit the lottery or come into some wealth, it doesn't change what's happening here and here. It doesn't change. It doesn't erase that trauma. It doesn't erase the fact that people need to heal from that. So when we're developing programs, when we're talking about issues that impact folks who are in poverty, we have to think about the trauma, because we get this bad idea that if we just plop these programs down in communities, that people are just going to come, right? That's not true, because when I'm in this survival mode, I might not even recognize an opportunity. I don't even see that being for me, because my perception of self is so distorted based on what I've had access to, right? So you got to think about that. We've got to think about that in every single space that we're in, where we're talking about people living in poverty.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. All I can say is double wow. That's why I love talking to you ladies, because I learned so much. Just sitting at your feet and just listening, I learn and take in so much. And I know that our audience is, like sponges, and they're soaking up just as much. So before we actually jump to our last question in our closing, I have to toss it back over to Corey from CWL Creatives. We got another round of Black Excellence Trivia. So this is your time to win. So here you go. I'm tossing it to you, Corey.
All right, everybody. All right. Listen, let's have some fun. Listen, this topic is so absolutely phenomenal. This is so wonderful. It brings in so much insight into the Black community. So let's have some more questions here. Question number 1, and remember to go down into the to the feed to give your answers. Question number 1: who was the first Black woman millionaire? Who was the first Black woman millionaire? Put those questions down in the chat there. Put those questions down in the chat. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Let's get got a little waiting music for you now. Put that down in the chat there. Down in the chat. I want to hear what you have there. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got here. Okay. All right. Anybody got the answer for that? Okay, do we have an answer? Okay. All right, we have an answer here. All right, let me see here. First to answer was Halima Tammy Thompson with Madam CJ Walker. That is the correct answer. Thank you so much. We're going to go on to question number 2. What entrepreneur turned a $40 million, no, excuse me, not 40 million, a $40 budget into a $6 billion fashion line? Wow. What entrepreneur turned a $40 budget into a $6 billion fashion line? All right. So I'm going to be checking the feed. I got computers all around me right now. So let's see who's going to answer that one. What entrepreneur turned a $40 budget into a $6 billion fashion line? Okay. Checking the chat here. Can you refresh? All right. What entrepreneur turned a $40 budget into a $6 billion fashion line? What's this? All right, let me see what you're saying here. Let me see here. Okay. All right, let's see what we got. Here. All right, so we have. Okay, 1 second. All right. Okay, I'm getting close, Kanye West. No, the bouquet. Is that French? Fubu. All right. She said dumb autocorrect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give that one away. That is Damon John. Damon John is still an entrepreneur and a shark on the television show Shark Tank. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. We got Celeste that answered at the last minute. I would say at the same time, we're going to give that to Celeste Benzo. Celeste Benzo got that one, everybody. Celeste Benzo. All right, question number 3. What retired basketball player is celebrated for his on-court achievements, philanthropy, and business success, especially in urban communities? We have A, Michael Jordan. We have B, Tim Duncan, or C, Irvin Magic Johnson. That is A, Michael Jordan, B, Tim Duncan, or C, Irving Magic Johnson. Amanda said Shaq. Shaq wasn't in choices. That's either Michael Jordan. Okay. All right. Michael Jordan, Tim Duncan, or Irving Magic Johnson. Let's see. All right. Let's see. We have. All right. Let's see. The first to answer correctly was Celeste again with C. That is the correct answer. Irving Magic Johnson. Irvin Magic Johnson is the chairman of and chief executive officer of the Magic Johnson Enterprises, an investment conglomerate that provides high quality products and services that focus primarily on ethical issues here. Oh, here we go. Ethically diverse and undeserved urban communities. All right. Thank you. We got two more questions. Might have room for two more questions. Okay, here we go. Question number 4. Which entrepreneur went on to become the first Black American billionaire in 2001? Okay, which entrepreneur went on to become the first Black American billionaire in 2001? Hint, this person co-founded BT and formerly owned part of the Charlotte Bobcats. That's the hint there. All right, let's check here what we have. Okay. Oh, we have some options. That is A, Susan Taylor, B, Robert Louis Johnson, or C, John H. Johnson. Okay. Let's see what we have here. Okay. First answer, B, by Amanda. That is the correct answer, Amanda. You are correct. That is Robert Louis Johnson. He is an entrepreneur, media magnate, executive philanthropist, and investor, and he became the first Black African-American billionaire in 2001. Congratulations, Amanda. You have correctly answered that question. All right, last question. Question number 5. Let me get it ready. Let me get it nice and good for everybody. Okay, here we go. All right. One moment. Okay. All right. Let's see. 1 second. All right, here we go. Got it. What boxing legend made more money endorsing his product than he did as a world champion? Hint, at his peak, he was being paid about 40% of the profits on each grill sold, earning him $4.5 million a month in payouts at its peak. It is estimated that he made over $200 million from the endorsement, which is more than he earned as a boxer. Now, this is a giveaway. Okay. We have... Who do we have? I know. I mean, as soon as I said grill, that should have been an absolute giveaway. There's no A, B, and C on this one. Janae Edwards hit it right off the bat with George Foreman. I don't know if anybody else has had a George Foreman grill, but I have, and I loved that commercial and how he delivered that there. So that is George Foreman. He is a former professional boxer, entrepreneur, minister, and author, and the George Foreman grill is still the most popular grill to this day. So I had so much fun with you all. Thank you for having me. I'm learning so much wonderful information, and I am going to go ahead and pass it back over to Tracy. Make sure you see all of the links and everything there to be able to donate to the Poise Foundation, representing this 40th anniversary of doing great work in the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Corey from CWL Creations, for hosting our Black Excellence Trivia. Shout out to all the winners for this evening for our trivia, but there's another way that you can be a winner. So before we get to our last question and our wrap up, I just want to encourage everyone to give back and give Black. You have an opportunity to make a donation of any size to the Poise Foundation, whether it is a $4, a $14, a $40, or a $400 donation. Any amount you can make to the Poise Foundation. If you want to keep and invest in building sustainable and Black communities here in the Pittsburgh region, we encourage you to make a donation of any size. With that donation that you make to the Poise Foundation, you will be eligible for a small gift from us while supplies last. So we want to be able to give you a beautiful thank you for supporting the work of Poise over these past 40 years. So to be able to invest over $15 million in Black-led, Black-serving organizations and in scholarships here in the Pittsburgh region, Poise is our own. It is our foundation, and we are only as strong as our foundation. So we need community members like you to invest in Poise. And so I want to bring our guests back for one last question. And it's a question that I think that we as Black families definitely need to talk about, that we don't talk about too often, is having conversations about finances and about wealth within the family unit is difficult conversations, right? Because I mean, we have all heard at some point, don't get in mama's business, and you don't need to know what's in Big Mama's purse. And Miss Big Mama had a sock that she had in her bosom, so you didn't know what she had. And we don't have those conversations until there's a crisis, and then nobody knows what to do. Nobody knows, what was in the bank or what the debts were or not. And one of the conversations that we really struggle with having is around when we think about, life insurance, which is, it's another way of passing generational wealth. But, we don't, like to talk about that. We don't think about insurance. We don't talk about it. And as a woman who's buried both of her parents, and my mom just recently last year, we had those conversations around life insurance. We had those conversations around, what was, my mom wanted, in regards to, her transition. And, and I remember her saying, don't spend too much, but, and funerals are not cheap. So they are not cheap. They are expensive. And, and the funeral home is, not necessarily waiting for you to be on a payment plan. You have to be ready to move quickly. You have to be ready to have those assets liquid and ready to go. But we don't like to have those uncomfortable conversations about money. So, Miss Charlise, I want to start with you with this. How can we start within our families to have these uncomfortable conversations about money, and not just wait until something happens and all the kids is grown and they in there about the fist fight because they don't know what mama owe, what she don't owe, and how, you're going to bury her or what's going to happen. How do we start to have those conversations? I remember having those conversations with my mom specifically as a teenager. And I was like, well, Mom, you're not going anywhere. But she sat me down and we had those conversations. I remember my dad having those conversations with me as a teenager, and talking about, the importance of life insurance, disability insurance, long-term disability insurance. Like, they were like, you need to be insured up because anything can happen. And so how can we start to have those difficult and uncomfortable conversations around money, especially with our children, right? Before the crisis hits?
Yes, good question. When you asked the question, I'm a visual, so I remember me and my sons, we were in the kitchen, and my conversation was surrounding them being teenage fathers, right? So this is how I strategically did it. I sat them down. I opened up a newspaper. I said, look for a job, look for a job. They look, we looked at McDonald's at that time, many, many, many years ago, how much you would make at McDonald's. And I started diving in about the taxes coming out. And then I said, now look at them tennis shoes you got on your feet. And I said, and if you have a child, let's do the child support thing. And do you believe after you do rent, and after you do light and gas, do you believe that you're going to be able to afford those tennis shoes? That was the first thing I did, having conversation. The next thing I did was I bought my sons this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I thought it was important for them to read it. And we had conversations about how to spend money. We as African Americans do not like to face who we are on paper. We run from it from a credit perspective. We run from it when it's time to look at our bank account. We run from it when it's time to look at our savings account. And once we get over the hump of embracing who we are on paper, because the bank is going to measure your character as to who you are on paper, we need to have these conversations with our families. Who cares if it's uncomfortable? Do it anyway. It doesn't have to be perfect. We need to know about life insurance. We need to know where everything is. You know, I'm the one who pay all the bills. If I die, do they know what to do? Do my husband know what to do? Do everybody know where the policies are? We have to be very honest about what our financial picture looks like. And the truth of the matter is, our ancestors did not want to tell us that they were struggling. See, we back in the day, it was all about secrets. Don't nobody got time for secrets today. Okay? This is the reality. This is where we are. This is what we're dealing with. This is the truth about life. No, your mama had to rob Peter to pay Paul. Let me tell you why I had to rob Peter to pay Paul, because I had you guys at a young age and I didn't get married and I made some bad decisions. So let me tell you the truth about my decisions so you don't find yourself in the financial condition that I was in, trying to raise 2 children by myself at one time. You understand what I'm saying? So we have to be honest. Don't nobody got time for that. Oh, secrets. No, we need to tell the truth. This is the truth. This is what you need to deal with. You need to have life insurance. You need to have this type of money saved up. This is what has to happen in order for you to survive. And I believe if we tell the truth and we're honest with our family and stop trying to live this perception that we got it all together, maybe people will embrace us and say, wait a minute, she may look like she got it together, but at least she's being honest, saying, you know what, I messed up. Yeah, I know about credit. I know about this, but maybe I messed up over here and I backslid a little bit and doing the necessary things I need to do in order to stay ahead of my financial condition and my financial situation. So my number one thing is we need to tell the truth to our children and to our family about the truth about money, how it can be a liability and how it can be an asset.
I think about how the old folks used to say, tell the truth and shame the devil, right?
Yes.
And I think part of the reason why we don't tell the truth, and Miss Tammy, I'm going to throw it over to you, is that there's so much shame. Mm-hmm. There is shame. Like, I mean, some of our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, there was shame in some of the things that they had to do in order to try to make ends meet, and ends still weren't meeting, or trying to survive, holding on to a single thread. And so there's that shame, that we try to mask and, and cover up. And I think that they, our ancestors, they've been good at passing shame through the family, right? Mm-hmm. Grandma was shame, she was, scrubbing floors and, you know what I mean? And, and doing doing whatever to try to make $1. So mm-hmm. You don't know what happened. And then mama comes along and there was shame, Miss Charlise said, well, maybe I had some kids out of wedlock, and maybe, you know what I mean? Nobody's dad was taking care of anybody, or I might not even know who their dad is. And, and I don't know how I was going to make money. And so there's that shame. And then we pass it along. That shame passes through the family. And that's why we have all these secrets, because of that shame that we're holding on to. So Miss Tammy, I toss it to you. How do we have these uncomfortable conversations? How do we, and I know you have your documentary film, We Wear the Mask. So how can we start to take off the mask and peel off those layers of shame that have been passed from generation to generation when it comes to talking about money?
Well, first we have to acknowledge the root of the shame and the guilt. And the root really doesn't have anything to do with us. It has to do with how this society has chosen to disregard and undervalue people based on what they own, based on their material possessions, based on what kind of house they live in, what kind of car we drive, what kind of phone do you have. Society has set the tone for that shame. We just fell into it. Right. We fell into it. We succumbed to, oh, I gotta live, I gotta keeping up with the Joneses. Now we're trying to keep up with the Joneses, the Thomases, the Smiths, everybody, because now we have more access to see what people have via social media. You can see a lot more of what people are portraying to be, right? So that's contributing to that. But we gotta get to a space where we are less worried about outside opinions and perspectives and more concerned about what's happening in our own lives and our own families. And the best way to do that, and starting those conversations with our children and our young people, our children, our grandchildren, we have to model the behavior we want them to follow. It has to start with us. And it's funny because I've been doing this work for a long time. I adopted a granddaughter 14 years ago. I adopted one of my granddaughters, and I adopted her right at the time where my career was really getting started and starting to really turn into something. I started knowing what I wanted to be when I grew up, right? That little girl has been to countless financial education workshops, countless home ownership workshops, countless meetings and so whether we think these kids are listening or not, they are. They're listening. They're paying attention. It might not look like it all the time. So it really is important that we are modeling the behavior and the habits that we want them to have, because they watch us. They don't necessarily listen all the time, but they do watch. And so I noticed that, because now when I go in a store, I hardly take this little girl shopping with me, because she is the budget enforcer. Do you hear me? She is the one who's going to say, you don't need those shoes. You just bought a pair. She is on it. And I noticed she's on it because she listened. She paid attention. And I became a model for her to follow these things. So we want our kids to start making better decisions. We want our kids to start thinking about these financial theories and concepts. We got to model them. And we've got to be having these, what we call kitchen table conversations on a regular basis. The same way we talk about everything else, we have got to be talking very intentionally about money and finances. And as far as life insurance, and one of the reasons why I think our people are a lot less or a lot more reluctant to focus on life insurance, it goes back to the poverty trauma. If I'm in survival mode, I'm not thinking about down the road, right? This is one of the bigger challenges with helping people escape survival mode. Because in survival mode, I'm right here. I'm focused from day to day. Maybe I'm thinking about the next paycheck. But for a lot of these financial theories and concepts, people have to be thinking down the road. They have to be able to plan down the road. And life insurance is a future tense endeavor, right? So we've got to think about, when we're saying, why don't our folks do? There's a reason our folks don't do these things. They're stuck in survival mode. And we've got to do the work to help encourage people out of survival mode and into thriving mode. Because thriving is the space where people think about planning for their future. Thriving is the space where people start planning for what happens to their assets and their property when they're gone. Thriving is the space that we want people to be in so that they can start thinking about, what can I do now so that my children, my grandchildren are having a better life than I had, or a more sensible life than I had, or a more wealthy life than I had. And that requires future thinking. So you got to get folks out of survival mode to start thinking about that.
Wow. Wow. Well, ladies, we could literally talk all night. I feel like a part 2 brewing in my spirit, because like there are so many things that, I would love to have gotten to, but this was great. And so I want to thank you both for this important conversation on today. And just for sharing your knowledge, your experience, and your heart and your passion for this work of helping those of us who are in the Black community, who are in Black communities and Black families move from poverty to prosperity. And the biggest takeaway is a mindset. We have to be shifting our mindset and learning to love who we are fundamentally. So that has been amazing. And so I invite everyone, if you enjoyed this conversation on tonight, there will definitely be more, but I invite you all to join us online July 8th, as we celebrate and continue our anniversary celebrations, as we celebrate our scholarship recipients. So we are going to have a scholarship celebration on July 8th, featuring Dr. Cheche Digbahu and our many scholarship recipients over the years for the Poise Foundation. And so we thank you again for just coming and being with us and supporting tonight's event, and for supporting Poise throughout the years. So you all have an amazing night, and we will see you again on July 8th.